Hello, APU community, and welcome to Zoo TV. I'm your host, Ruby McAuliffe, and I sit down for an exclusive interview with APU's President Paul Ferguson. We talk about an online fall semester, the hope for an in-person spring semester, and all of the movement surrounding APU. So I want to ask you first, how did the decision to stay online for the fall semester come to fruition on your end?
So we had all planned for a return to campus. I mean, as we came out of the spring and into early June, we had developed a return to campus task force of faculty and administrators, really trying to say, how do we get back on campus? Because working very closely with the California State Department of Health, the governor's office, and LA County, we had to be very closely monitoring what the pandemic situation was, because they were evaluating whether you could even open or not. You just didn't have the authority to open on your own without the full support and compliance with the guidelines that were set up by public health. So as we were expecting to have a back on campus in the fall. And then as June kind of progressed and we got to the middle of July, and we were seeing that the incidence of the disease was on the upswing again, LA County Public Health was very concerned. And so as that red flag was raised that we're not sure this is a good situation in LA County, we felt very strongly that, again, with that original balancing of community care, protecting our students, we had to make a decision in midsummer to go out there and say, okay, we're going to make sure we invest in a remote learning option, equip our faculty better than we did in the spring, because spring was kind of boom, there we are. And then work with our faculty and our staff and get our students enough notice so they wouldn't be buying tickets to come back to campus or travel plans or housing plans. And so we wanted to give everybody as much notice as possible.
And you had mentioned, you said, of course, it's not ideal for us to be online, but on the other hand, I don't think it would have been ideal for us to also be on campus because of the health concerns. So I want to ask you, what words of encouragement would you give to students? Because on the right hand and on the left hand, it's not a positive or negative experience completely. So what advice would you give to students?
Well, great question, Ruby, because I think that the challenge is there is no guidebook. I think that's the first premise, right? If you're trying to say, well, why don't we do it like this? Or why don't we do it like that? There truly is. And I've been in higher education for 40 years. Don't count them, 40 years. There really is no guidebook. And it really has provided, I think, and how we've tried to guide our discussion is for an institution that is God first and really models our lives out of how do we be Christ followers in the world? How do we do this right?
Yes.
So the encouraging words that I would just say is that it's an unprecedented situation. And I really believe that God really is glorified in unprecedented situations. My chapel in a couple of weeks is how to live above excuses in challenging seasons. We all are going to come up with excuses because it's too hard, it's too easy, can't handle it. And those are tough. Some of these are tough situations. Let's not downplay it. But I really do believe that God can be glorified rising above those in whatever your individual circumstance is. That's what he promises to do. So I think the words of encouragement I would just say is stay close, stay grounded in Scripture. The Holy Spirit will really elevate this in a way that we have never seen before. And if we believe that, then I think that's the guiding light of how do we get out of this.
And then you also mentioned this, a cornerstone of APU is community. How are you, or APU as a whole, manifesting community during these virtual times?
Yeah. Well, virtually.
right? That's the answer.
But I mean, it's kind of interesting when it first hit, because as you know, we always really define how we get together. We have chapels, we have faculty staff gatherings. I would usually meet with departments. And that was just eliminated, right? That was just gone. And so even last spring, you have to be intentional to connect. And so I think that even now, as we're going into the fall, we're developing a little bit more town halls. Just to be able to connect, we had a town hall last week with faculty and staff. We had about 460 people on that town hall to talk about where we were, where we're going. We're going to do something very similar with SGA the next couple of weeks. Talk a little bit about budget and where we're going. The other thing I think I would encourage everybody and really think about is really touch people through email. Send a good word. I can't tell you how blessed and encouraged I am when out of nowhere, a faculty member or a staff member or an alum will just drop me an email and just say, hey, I know it's tough. Thanks for what you're doing. You know, you're not looking for praise or glory. It's just a touch to say, I'm praying for you and hang in there. This is tough. I think the more we start doing that and kind of building that matrix of recognized and intentional care and concern,
Yeah.
that's APU community.
And I think the President's Roundtable even plays into that community.
Yes.
Do you mind talking about that a bit?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. That's a new thing this year. Exactly to your question, really feeling that this fall and spring, we really need to be more intentional on connection and community. And so anytime I'm talking to people, there's always kinds of a plethora of questions. I got a question about this. Why are we doing that? So we decided that we were going to convene a series of what we call presidential roundtables. 6 this fall will be kind of dedicated to faculty and staff on the kind of issues they're interested in. And then 6 to students only. So they'll be gathering together around the table. If someone has a question on tuition or budget, or I don't understand tuition, why are we paying this in tuition? Great question.
Yeah.
But sometimes those are hard questions to answer over email or in a short period of time. SGA will be working with us to kind of announce the topics and let students sign up. And we'll just have a roundtable with me of about 20 students at a time.
So it will be over Zoom? Is that how it will be?
It'll be over Zoom, right. When we get back on campus, we would have those around the table. It would be a literal roundtable, but for
There
the
we go.
fall, that's what we're doing.
So now I want to ask, and propelling a bit forward, are there plans to return for spring? And if so, what does that look like right now? What are the steps being taken?
We are really right in the middle of that planning, and I would say it's the same principles that we're going through. So again, balancing fiscal discipline and community care, making sure we are compliant with what LA County is indicating. Things are looking good from the county viewpoint. Our disease rates are going down. We're not quite out of the woods yet, and LA County has not given us a green light. We're expecting some real insights mid-November, when they're going to say, these are the guidelines for higher education to be open to remote learning, and here's what you got to do. So we really are planning to have a focus on strategic planning for both options. I'm not sure which it's going to be yet. We're going to be planning for both. So November-ish, I'm hoping that we can really pull the trigger on what we'll be ready to go one way or the other. But it really is going to be depending on how the pandemic is looking and how LA County is open to working with us. Ruby, I'll just say this. The challenge, I think, for us is we all need to be sensitive. As you know, I'm a scientist by background. I'm a toxicologist with my degree. And so I think wanting to make sure that science helps make the decisions, not just science and politics. It's always a balance between that. And we're in a society today where that's really getting cloudy, right? Is it a political decision? Is it a science decision? And I'm committed to protecting the health and safety of our people. And so we're in a good place right now. We'll continue to evaluate it. And I think we'll be ready for both. But I think we have to go a 2-option strategy. We can't wait without being ready to go.
And I want to ask a follow-up question. So what about fall commencement and even the commencement that was for spring, right? It would be at this fall. So what does that look like now? And is that kind of a waiting game as well?
I think we have concerns that we can do it in person. I mean, we're looking at that I just don't know if we'd be allowed to bring in a full graduation or commencement. But I think depending on what the guidelines are, we do want to do something, because we were looking for last May. We want 2020 to have a commencement, right? So we're looking at ways to do that. And I think we're a little uncertain about what we can do, but I think probably within the next 2 weeks, we'll have that out.
So
Okay.
Tomorrow is the strategic plan, and it's that launch. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Well, I hope you tune in at 10 o'clock. I mean, it's going to be about a half hour, 40-minute launch. Well, as you know, all last year, we were in the middle of planning the strategic plan, fully engaged with the APU community, students, faculty, staff, alumni, board. So this is a consensus-based plan that provides about 5 grand initiatives to change in a bold way. The vision, I think the vision, I'm going to just share it. You'll hear it tomorrow. Okay. But we really do aspire to be the premier Christian university for our culture and times in this country. Wow. And we use renewal as the title, simply because it's not that APU needs to be recreated. It's just that we need to be renewed, reinvested. Romans 12, the university passage this year, is the theme of the strategic plan. renew your minds, and then you'll know the perfect will of God.
And one last question. If you could leave the APU community with one word that you would like to see manifest itself throughout the season, what would it be?
Trust.
Trust.
Trust Him, trust God. I mean, we're in such an uncertainty. I mean, it's an uncertain time. But I've found trust God to guide us. Trust your brothers and sisters to be there for you. Trust.
Thank you so much, President Ferguson, for joining me on Zoo TV and for this interview with Zoo News. It's great.
Thanks so much, Ruby. See you soon, I hope.
Thank you for joining me here today on Zoo TV. Once again, I am your host, Ruby McAuliffe.